have Musette by Johann Sebastian Bach from Anna Magdalena Bach notebook. And I have few things to discuss about this short piece. I'm going to play just the beginning to remind you how the piece sounds. I'm sure you know it. So this is the beginning, and many students will say, oh, well, this is easy to read music, so that's easy piece. Well, it's easy to read, but it has some uncomfortable technically places, such as jumps. So here is the first example. It's between measure 2 and measure 3. You're jumping here, and then you're jumping back, and it should be on time. Some students may play like this. And they think this sounds good. No, this is not good. There is a difficult place which is in B section. So B section starts right here. This is the difficult place because both hands are playing at the same time, but each hand has its own melody. So that is difficult. The right hand has this melody and the left is. And to play them together, that's difficult for beginners. So when I teach this little piece, from technical point of view, I tell my students that this is the difficultest place in the piece, so let's start with the difficult place and let's learn it together or practice it together, and as well as the jumps which I showed you at the beginning. But besides this, there is more issues in these and similar pieces. I would outline and I would talk to my students regardless if this is a child or adult student. I will just use different different language. Bach wrote the piece. That's what they think. So he is a composer. And when did he live? Few hundred years ago, right? So when he lived, they didn't have cell phones, they didn't have a video recording, they could not even do audio recording. So all they did, he did, composer. He wrote these symbols on the paper, but even he was so busy, and the tradition back then from Baroque era was that composers didn't write a lot of details. They just basically wrote notes, and even sometimes they even didn't write notes. They wrote just like basically chords, like, and then a performer would improvise. Something like that, or something else, yeah? So that was tradition back then. So composers, including Johann Sebastian Bach, didn't write a lot. They just didn't write a lot of the details on paper. So all the articulation, fingering, and dynamics were not written by Johann Sebastian Bach in this piece. So they've been written by whoever the editor was. So it says completed and fingered by Walter Carroll. So I believe that they edited this music and they wrote all these articulation markings. So according to the editor, this musette should be played like this. I'll play again just the beginning part. And I played for you, my left hand was detached, so non-legato. So what should we do? Or which fingering we should use? Or which dynamics we should use? He starts piano, for instance, the editor. And then mezzo forte. And then back to piano. So maybe he had his own point of writing these dynamics and this articulation. But to my students, I tell them that we have to think of the background. We have to know that Bach didn't write these details in his music himself. So how do we find out what's the correct way to play? So first of all, we look at the title. Some pieces, they don't have title, but this piece has title. It's Musette, and we also know that this piece is a short piece that was created for students to practice. It was created it has a pedagogical goal for students to learn it and to gain some technical aspects out of this piece. And Musette, what was Musette? That was a dance back then, and we just have to have that in mind when we played, right? So maybe we can think that dancers were whatever they were doing, yeah? Maybe bowing something or jumping, maybe bowing here and jumping, right? So we don't know, but we can guess, we can imagine. And then, for instance, instead of playing all of that staccato in measure 3 and 4, which is written here, this staccato. For instance, I could offer my student to play some of the notes on legato, so put some slur like this, or just the last one slur. So it will sound like this if we put a slur on the last beat of measure 4. Now, if I put 2 slurs on beat 1 and on beat 3 in measure 4, that's how it sounds. So, whichever you like, but it has to have that happy, upbeat feeling for this piece, because it's a dance, yeah, a happy dance. It's written in D major mood, so it's a happy music. So I offer my students to decide if they would like to slur, just put 1 slur or put more slurs, because this would be appropriate for this piece since it's a dance. Now about the dynamics. So the editor puts piano at the beginning. Well, it again, you will decide it accordingly to your plan, how you want to interpret this music. So for instance, you can think of the, I don't know, maybe flute playing that melody, and maybe percussion playing this. Yeah, so it would be somewhat loud. Or maybe you want to start it soft, I don't know. If you want to start it soft and pretend this is from very far away, it could sound soft. Or maybe loud. And then, as an opposite, as a contrast, this one could be somewhat soft and then again loud. Or you could do vice versa, just as it's written here. You can imagine, so you can orchestrate piece, yeah? You can think of different orchestral timbres. For instance, right here, because the both hands placed very near by one another, and it sounds in the middle of the keyboard, it sounds quite loud. So I would think that this is like 2 tutti, like all together, like the entire orchestra playing these moments. Right? So maybe even more forte here. Yeah? So for me, would be somewhat mezzo forte here. And even more forte here. Because that's how I hear the music in my imagination, and you know, I just discussed it. I want tutti here, and here I want just solo flute and maybe some percussion. And later on in B section, coming back to articulation, this place. It's really written like a dance with this syncopa. So I think really the composer wanted to show this syncopa. So really we would place accent on this note, which is natural D, and it's written, the editor wrote the big legato over 2 major phrases, so that's how he wanted it to sound. And I would like to play it not all of it legato, but instead I would put some slurs like this. One slur, just a separate note, because this is the accented syncopa. And then another slur. So I have slur, no slur, no slur, slur, another slur. That's how it sounds in tempo. And you definitely can put different slurs, like, I don't know, maybe this one, maybe 3-note slur. Right, you can do that. Or maybe you could do 2 slurs, a pair of 2 slurs, like this. I don't know. So you decide. I hope I gave you some explanations of how you could work with a piece if there are not enough details written down, such as articulation, such as tempo markings, such as dynamics. You can decide on your own, but thinking what's the style of the piece, who is the composer, when did they live, the composer, right, of this piece, and what's the title, what does title tell us, if there is a title, and you can decide. I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you in my next video.